Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Your Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Cloak and Dagger. A great episode, a lot of interesting things, so let's kind of get into it and break a lot of stuff down. I feel like it's another step in the direction of what their abilities kind of are, because it seems like when they open that door, I guess that door is more like a manifestation of like his deeper subconscious, because I think it's probably like, I guess the argument could be made, they've always gone surface level when it came to people's hopes and their fears, but this is like it kind of, and I guess in retrospect it's like it makes sense why that door was blocked off and only Ty would be able to open it, was just because it's like, oh yeah, because like that contains a lot of his deepest fears, like that's his like fractured mind in there. And so it's kind of interesting because like who he was, like every concept of the outside world and everything was lost to him, because it's like he was almost internally trapped in that one moment of like the rig exploding and everything. And just his mind so messed up by it. It's just kind of like, it's like, oh yeah, this is all there ever is. Just this. And there was no before, there's no after. There's just this moment, everything happening over and over again. So that was such an interesting concept for the episode too, in a sense of like I said, they reached a level in someone to the point like what's happening in there, like it never came up, but like the things in there, which he called terrors, which I'm curious to see if that's going to be something we see pop up later on. Like that might legitimately be a thing where it's like, is it just because of his condition, or is it because, like I said, they went deeper in his subconscious and they actually have anyone else before that they've touched? So that we might see this kind of pop up in other people, because once again, their abilities are kind of growing and stuff like that. But what I thought was so fascinating was like the things in there try to actively kill them. So it's almost like the mind has its own. I mean, to be fair, they kind of come after Ivan too. So I guess you can make it like his consciousness trying to, like his fractured mind kind of attacking him and anything else, almost kind of like antibodies hitting like a virus or something that's in your system, kind of like. That's what I'm curious about. I find this so fascinating. Like I said, it never came up, but like if you get hurt in there, would it get reflected in their body, on their bodies? Because it's like, because it's probably not just their minds that they're putting in there. I mean, they might be kind of putting everything that is them, essentially their essence. So like if they get cut in there, will they get cut in the real world? I don't know. We never got that tested, but that might be something we see kind of pop up later on in the series. So I just thought it was kind of a fascinating thing. And I thought it was such a well-constructed thing of like, obviously Ty's trying to handle everything on his own, because he sees that Tandy, she picks up the phone and talks to her dad, and it's like Tandy's lost in that moment. It's just kind of like Tandy doesn't, she's like, no, let me do this a couple times. I mean, she hasn't heard her dad's voice in 8 years. So obviously, you know, she misses him so much. So obviously she kind of gets swept up in it, just like Ivan kind of got, because he even talked about himself. He's like, I lost count after like the 100,000. It kind of gets a little, so he just, for the past 8 years, that's just been recycling over and over again, to the point you just kind of forget everything that was. Maybe at one point in time, he was a lot more clear headed, but because he was constantly there, just, I guess it's also a representation of his fractured mind. The fact of the matter is who he was, his identity, and everything about him starts fading away. He doesn't know his name, doesn't know the fact that he has a daughter. So a lot of that's kind of slipping away in his like catatonic state. And Tandy's kind of going through the same thing, but Ty's like, okay, let's get out of here. Her tricking him into leaving was great. I figured that's what was going to happen. I thought it was kind of interesting, because I thought what was probably going to happen is like, okay, we need to get out of here together, so that when they try to get out, like he's like, okay, something's not working, and then realize it's like, oh, she's not trying to get out, but it's like, no, he got out. But then it was also interesting too, because even when he got out, he couldn't physically separate them, because their powers, I guess, are so ingrained in people that it's just kind of like a giant anchor being tied to them. And it's like, once that power is activated, there's no pulling it apart. They can only pull it apart if they choose to. So it has to be by Tandy's own will. So Ty's like, I should just get out of here. But what does he do? He goes back in there. So, and it turns out in that amount of time he was away, he was out for what, maybe like 30 seconds, goes back in there. Things have repeated like 200 times. So she's been in there a while talking to her dad. Gotten better at the dagger thing, because now they turn into projectiles for him. Like, that's dope. Like, not only can she just summon him, she can throw, like, legitimately throw them like throwing knives and stuff like that. I'm like, that's so cool. It's like, wow. Even Ty's like, holy crap, you really got that down. Even to the point she starts losing, like I said, slipping into Ivan's situation of forgetting who Ty was and everything about him. Because like for her, and it's such a sad thing, and it's kind of interesting, because like we kind of deal with a similar thing, like in the TV show Reverie, kind of a similar thing in a sense of life on the outside so much harder, because for her, she feels like she has no one. I mean, like, in all honesty, outside of Ty, she doesn't really have anyone. Like her relationship is the way it is with her mom. They still kind of have like their struggles. The whole Liam situation, like that's just her pushing him away. She doesn't really have any friends, at least that we know of. I mean, that she even admits to herself that she doesn't really have any friends. I think it's just a situation of just her entire life being what it is. You kind of push people away, and she's kind of become who she is. She lies and steals and manipulates people, drugs to kind of numb her pain and stuff. And I thought it was kind of a sweet thing where Ty was kind of like, no, I'm your friend. She's like, no, I just manipulated you, which is like, you can obviously tell that's just her trying to push him away. Just like, get out of here. You just go, let me stay here and be happy, have what I don't have in the real world. Because in all honesty, like, I think that's why Ty decided to help her, not only just because he cares about it, because he understands. And that's the thing, is like, they understand each other like no one else can, not just on a power level, but what they're going through, what they've lost. Because in Ty's case, it's like, he can't get justice for his brother. Like, he feels like that died with Wayne. At the very least, I'm sure that's one reason why he was so hoping to help Tandy too, because like, maybe I can't help out my brother's situation, but maybe I can help Tandy out with her dad's situation. You know, like at least some, like there's some silver lining to like the things playing out the way they did. So, but I thought it was crazy when she actually started throwing them at him. And luckily for Ty, Tandy's not the only one that got better. It's kind of interesting too, because it's like, because even Ty talked about it, like actually using his powers actually is a little easier there. I guess it's just because because their powers kind of rely on emotions, and you're just at the raw level of what a person is. And I guess all that just makes, like, I guess it's just some like ethereal consciousness that, I guess it's like tapping into someone's consciousness that, well, that wavelength, that plane that you're on kind of affects your abilities, in a sense of like, that's how your abilities are affected by your emotions and stuff like that. So maybe that, I don't know, it's hard to explain like how that really works, but he pops all over the place, and he's like, what, really? You it's like, you're trying to kill me. She's like throwing them at him. And it's like, you can't blame her just for being so upset, because for her, it's like, this is the only tie she has to her dad. And she even says the same thing to Billy. It's like, I mean, Ty's like, if Billy was in if the situation were different and it was your brother, would you even, like, were we even having this argument? The fact of the matter is, you know, oh, what was his name again? Bob. And he's like, Billy. Is like, see, that feeling, the feeling of just someone getting his name wrong pissed you off. It's like, I feel that all the time when it comes to her dad. And it's just like, for her, this was her way of handling it. But for Ty, it's just kind of like, this isn't real. But the fact of the matter is, you don't believe me? Okay, ask your dad one question. Only he would know, and Ivan wouldn't. And so, my thought process behind that all is that maybe it's kind of saying that, because I interpret it many different ways. One way is like, because, you know, he is in a catatonic state, he still takes in information. So if the TV's on, he's most likely, because he's always making references to the baseball game. So I don't know whether that's just a game that was on at that time 8 years ago, or was he hearing the TV or whatever. But maybe over that time he heard the news about Nathan, you know. That's why, because he ends up saying something I thought was kind of interesting. Basically, she asked him, like, okay, who was in the car? And he goes, well, no one. You know, it's like, who's in the car with you right now, Dad? Because this is during the time 8 years ago. And he's like, no one. Because the only person who would know that she was in the car with him was Nathan, because no one else knew. Because I didn't even think about that, because it's like, after Ty and her washed up on shore, she just kind of walked away. So someone either picked her up or she made her way back home on her own. Either way the case may be, like, no one knew that she was with Nathan. Like, she wasn't there at the site of the accident, so obviously why would anyone think otherwise, you know? So that's why it's like, if this was really my dad, we are connecting on some level. It's like, he would know that, because he knows I was in the back seat. So, but like, the thing is, besides just hearing it, so because I was getting back to what I was talking about, is like, maybe during like hearing the TV play in the background, he heard about Nathan being the only one in the car, so that's why he's able to answer. I was like, no one's there, because the report says there was no one there. It's like, well, yeah, because only people who would know that Tandy was there are Ty or herself and her dad. But another level of things I was also thinking about is anytime he had any responses to her. We're also talking about Ivan, who has a daughter of his own. So anything he was saying, like, I didn't really pay much of attention, but he referred to her as Pumpkin and stuff like that. I don't know if he referred to Nina as that or anything like that, but my thought process was like, it's basically his consciousness applying what he would say to Nina to Tandy, essentially. You know, that's what I'm thinking. And obviously, like, because Tandy wanted it so badly, it kind of conformed to it, just like fit the narrative she wanted to be like, oh, this is my dad. And, you know, so, I mean, it was him anyway, but this is based on, but it's also based on what Ivan already knew about Nathan too. So that's probably another level too. It's not even just like, oh, Ivan, and now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, it's not just Ivan taking his own consciousness and kind of like applying it, like what he would say to Nina to, Tandy. It's like, no, he knew Nathan, so he probably spent enough time around Nathan and Tandy to realize how Nathan would talk to his daughter, so it kind of filled in the blanks a lot, you know, so it kind of extrapolated from what he already knew, so that kind of clarifies it in my head a little bit. I feel like it could be both, but I think it's a combination of those two, like, plus like hearing stuff on the TV or just news reports and stuff like that, so. But fortunately, Tandy was kind of able to snap out of it thanks to Ty, and she was able to kind of help snap Ivan out of it too, because it's like making him remember his daughter, like telling him the secret ingredients to the cookies. And I like how that came back like that, because obviously it plays a bit at the beginning of the episode. Which that is something we have to walk away from wondering, like, that's kind of once again is like, what's Roxanne's situation with this? Because we find out that he had ordered for some shields to be like delivered, but they were never delivered. So that's why things kind of went bad at the rig. So the question then becomes, was that them trying to be cheap and save money? Or I would assume, you know, once again, it's a corporation thing to do. So obviously they've been doing everything they can to cover their tracks. So it's most likely like they're like, oh, it's probably too expensive to do what he wanted. And it was just like, oh, we're just digging for this stuff. Like, once again, it goes back to, did they know exactly what they were digging for? Or did they still like legitimately think it was just oil? Or did some people just think like, did most people think it's oil while Roxanne really kind of knew the truth? That's ultimately the question we're still kind of left being opened about. But nevertheless, I did like kind of like the whole escape and like I said, Tandy and Ty working in tandem, and you know, Ivan, because I was wondering, like, it's like, oh, like, because Ty tried to do it the thing Ivan said, but it didn't work, and it's like, oh, it's because it has to be Ivan. This is his mind and everything, so he's the only one that can kind of break that wake from him. And what is kind of interesting is when they do wake up and do escape, he doesn't remember them. Like, everything they experienced in there is going. Like I said, I guess it exists on such a level. It's like, I guess it's like waking from a dream, unless you hold on to it very tightly, which I guess they can, but he can't. I guess because it is his mind, but because they kind of like they act as travelers in other people's minds, that the rules don't kind of apply for them, you know? So I thought that's kind of pretty neat. And you had the moment of Nina and her dad being reunited, which, let's not celebrate too quickly. Let's not forget, Roxanne is quick to cover up some stuff, so most likely, who knows, maybe ultimately that'll end up leading to like I said, I hope, like, it doesn't come up in the episode, but it's like, I hope Tandy gets the information she needs, because it's like, they're going to be coming after him, like, they're going to try and wipe him out. So that might be something we see too, them trying to protect him in the future, like, because people will come after him, like Roxanne came after it. Wasn't a dude's named Greg, Tandy's mom's boyfriend, you know, the lawyer dude that Tandy actually kind of got close to. So, but what I also thought was kind of pretty sweet is kind of tying all that together is also the ending of the episode with the whole thing of like Ty actually calling Tandy. She's like, hello? It's like, wait, what? You're calling? Like, you know? And it's just because, you know, for one, Ty was thinking about it too, because he had talked about it himself. Like, he had almost forgotten what his brother's voice had sounded like because it had been so long. And the fact of the matter is, you know, obviously he didn't want to kind of do that alone. And it's just kind of like, it's kind of like neither one of them wanted to be alone in that situation. And you just see the smile and joy they kind of get from each other's company, listening to the recording of Ty and Billy. And it's just kind of like, oh, wow. Like, you have Tandy being like, wow, your bro was actually really good, but you kind of sucked. It's like, I was a kid. I was like 6 or 7 years old. It's like, yeah, but you still kind of sucked even for back then. And it's just like, I don't know. It's kind of sweet in a way that when it's all said and done, like I said, it's like it's a bond that no one else in the show can have with them, because they know aspects about each other. They know each other's pain. They understand each other's pain on a level no one else probably could ever really understand. So I just think that's a nice way of kind of bringing our characters even closer together under these circumstances. So I'm curious to see what this all means going forward. Like I said, they have never got any outright answers from Ivan yet, but like I said, we'll see what that really comes up to be. I mean, let's not forget also there's the whole Connor situation, because it's interesting because now it kind of clicks more in Ty's head that like a lot of stuff that Tandy's looking into kind of affects him as well, because it's like, well, because of that explosion at the rig that killed, like, that caused her dad's car accident, it led to Connor's, getting startled and shooting Billy. So that kind of like, that rig situation, I think on some level, maybe Ty will feel like, yeah, it's, kind of in him to kind of look into it as well, because it's kind of what started all of this, but also because it's because it's so important to Tandy, so. It's kind of interesting that I'm sitting here thinking about it. It's almost like, I know this is such a nerdy thing to make the comparison to, but it's like skipping over the training montage or training segments of like an anime or something like that, because it's like we skipped over it, but it's like, like Tandy's gotten better, like I brought up earlier, the daggers. And we also have Ty getting better at controlling his ability, kind of using it more at will. Once again, it was easier there, but I mean, who knows? Maybe some of that's translated over into the real world. We have to wait and see. But which once again kind of shows a lot, too. Like, probably the stronger they become on the outside, like in that world, in that realm, they could probably really dominate things, like kind of run things the way they kind of want to. Like I said, we saw little tad bits even last episode about how, like, to kind of get someone to get the dude who was about to pull out the gun to back down, like, Ty kind of brought his fear to the surface, so they can kind of, like, not only just be observers, they can really fiddle with, like, the hopes and fears of people, so. That's also interesting, too, because there's the whole and I guess maybe that just fits the whole, like, thing going on inside of Ivan's mind, but it's like, obviously, it was a door that was blocked by like a power that Ty had to absorb, which obviously represents like the darkness, and then the whole aspect of like it also representing fear. Because once again, the whole like terror situation, and it's like, I mean, do you think any of that came about? Because I mean, obviously, the rig situation kind of led to them getting their powers. They haven't really talked about it too much, but obviously, you can't help but make the correlation. So it's like maybe there's. I mean, to be fair, we don't know if anyone else survived. No, definitely. Like, Ivan's the only one who survived, but you don't know, Mike. Do you think any of that might come true, that some of the power leaking through ended up creating these terrors or something? Or is it just something, because, I mean, he's calling, like, the burn dude, like, Monsieur Flambe. Those are just names he gave him. So it's like, I mean, who knows if that's really a thing? But once again, it's just kind of like them attacking him is just kind of like his fear taking over him, kind of manifesting itself as kind of like these zombie-like creatures. So, like I said, beyond that, maybe, I mean, it still doesn't mean it won't appear in other shapes and form depending on the person, but maybe that's just it. Like, the terror stopped with Ivan, or like I brought up earlier, maybe it might be a consistent thing we see all across. Like I said, it depends on how much further they can push this whole, like I said, conscious / empathy ability of theirs. Like, I don't know what you really call that when they peer into the hopes and fears of people. I called it kind of like an empath ability, but I don't know how, if that would be the proper, like, titling for it. But nevertheless, I'm very interested to see what the next episode has in store for us with the continuation of all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.